So hi, I'm Peter, and myself and Neil will be going over Group 15's presentation, and it's on hitchhiking in the autonomic nervous system in the head and neck, and how that differs between the sympathetic and parasympathetic nervous systems. So we'll just give you a quick summary of what we'll go through. We'll do a very, very quick recap of the autonomic nervous system just to give us a base level to go up from. We'll then do a definition of hitchhiking and how that differs in the head and neck between the parasympathetic nervous system and the sympathetic nervous system. And then we'll pass you over to Neil. We'll go over some specific examples and also explain how all of this is clinically relevant. So very quickly, the autonomic nervous system, we all know it controls the involuntary activities within the body, and it's sort of divided into sympathetic and parasympathetic divisions. Sympathetic nervous system having a thoracolumbar outflow and controlling the processes of fight or flight, and parasympathetic nervous system having a craniosacral outflow and controlling the processes of rest and digest. So what is hitchhiking? Well, we've got a definition now, which is it's when a nerve travels along another structure, such as a nerve or artery, as a means to reach its target. So rather than sort of setting out its own course, it will use the course already set out by the other structure to reach its destination, allowing sort of a condensing of structures, which is particularly useful in the head and neck where there's a lot going on. So we looked at a number of resources, and one of the best ways we found to visualise hitchhiking in the head and neck was to imagine a train line. You've got one major train line there running from Edinburgh all the way down to London, and that train line symbolises one of the cranial nerves. So we'll choose the oculomotor nerve, which is cranial nerve 3. So that's running all the way from Edinburgh, which is the brainstem, to London, which in the case of the oculomotor nerve will be the extra ocular muscles other than the superior oblique and lateral rectus, which are innervated by other cranial nerves. And the course of that oculomotor nerve will be used by autonomic nervous fibres to reach their destinations. We'll start with parasympathetic nervous system because it's slightly more simple to begin with. So, as we said earlier, the parasympathetic nervous system is a craniosacral outflow, and that means that all the parasympathetic nervous fibres in the head and neck start off within the brainstem, within the cranium. So they'll start off at that brainstem and get on the train at Edinburgh, and they'll use the course of the oculomotor nerve to travel towards the front of the face and towards their destination. However, they don't want to go, those parasympathetic nervous fibres aren't going to the extraocular muscles, they're going to the pupillary sphincter muscles and the ciliary muscles within the eyeball. So at some point they have to leave the course of the oculomotor nerve and in this visualisation get off the train. And we can see that happens at Derby Station. What that symbolises there, those parasympathetic nervous fibres getting off that train, are the parasympathetic nervous fibres synapsing at a ganglion in the head, and in this case it will be the cervical ganglion. And at that point they leave the course of the oculomotor nerve. Postganglionic parasympathetic nerve fibres then follow other nerves, in this case the short ciliary nerves, to reach their effectors, and in this case it will be, as said before, the pupillary sphincter muscles to allow pupillary constriction in the light reflex, and the ciliary muscles for accommodation in the lens in focusing of the eye. And that differs slightly to how sympathetic nervous fibres will hitchhike. So sympathetic nervous fibres, they have a thoracolumbar outflow. So they don't start off in the brainstem. Instead, they come from the thoracolumbar region and head upwards. And they will synapse, rather than in a ganglion in the head, they'll synapse in one of the cervical ganglia, which will be either a superior, middle, or inferior cervical ganglion. At that point, they'll then hitchhike rather than on the cranial nerve on one of the arteries in the neck. That could be a common carotid artery, internal carotid artery, external carotid artery, and we've also got other ones as well, including the inferior thyroid artery. They'll then pass into their head through the cavernous sinus and then travel along part of the cranial nerve before reaching their effector. So basically the main difference is parasympathetic nerves start in the brainstem, hitchhike immediately along the cranial nerve, then synapse in the ganglion in the head, and then follow another nerve to their effector, whereas the sympathetic nerve fibres start in the thoracolumbar region, synapse in one of the cervical ganglia, and travel along one of the main arteries in the neck rather than immediately along the cranial nerve, enter the cavernous sinus into the head, and then travel along the cranial nerve to reach their effector. this case, with these sympathetic nervous fibres, it will be the pupillary dilator muscles allowing for dilation of the pupil in the light reflex. So hopefully that clears that up a little bit, and I'll pass it over to Neil and I'll go through some examples of clinical relevance. Thanks, Peter. So if we look at the parasympathetic hitchhiking, the main cranial nerves associated with this are the oculomotor nerve, facial nerve, glossopharyngeal, and vagus nerve. And we can see that preganglionic fibres tend to run within branches of these cranial nerves or alongside them. However, they don't actually originate with the nerve roots. They tend to originate from a nucleus, which is a collection of neuronal cell bodies in the central nervous system. So in the case of the facial nerve, for example, it would be the superior salivatory nucleus that these parasympathetic fibres originate from. If we then look at postganglionic parasympathetic fibres, they tend to hitchhike then along branches of the trigeminal nerve in general. So again, the facial nerve as an example, they hitchhike along branches of the maxillary nerve, which we know is a branch of the trigeminal nerve. And we were thinking about how this could be advantageous, and we thought that the trigeminal nerve is your main sensory supply to most of the face, so there are therefore many routes for these parasympathetic fibres to reach their target organs. In contrast, sympathetic fibres, they tend to be more flexible in terms of the structures they can course along, so there are quite a range of arteries that sympathetic fibres can hitchhike along, including common, external and internal carotid arteries, inferior thyroid artery, vertebral and subclavian arteries, and in general they'll course along the internal carotid artery up towards the cavernous sinus, and then they'll hitchhike along the cranial nerve from there. So to try and illustrate some clinical relevance, we took oculomotor nerve palsy as an example, and here we've got two clinical presentations, both demonstrating a downward and outward gaze of the right eye, and also ptosis or drooping of the upper eyelid. There is, however, a difference between these two presentations, so could anyone spot what that is?
Pupil is dilated.
Which one? Yeah, so on this patient, pupils of equal diameter, and that's because the parasympathetic fibres have been spared in this oculomotor nerve palsy, whereas in this person, the parasympathetic fibres have also been palsied as well as the oculomotor nerve, and the parasympathetic fibres would normally innervate sphincter pupillae, which causes constriction, but if that's palsied, you don't get that constriction, and so there's unopposed dilation, causing dilation of this eye. So then, if we try and, so that just tells you it's a dilated pupil. If we try and link this back to the anatomical course, we can see that the parasympathetic fibres travel along this nerve or within it, preganglionic. So if there is dilation, we'd suspect that the lesion is before the ganglion. Whereas if the pupil isn't involved, then we're expecting the lesion to be postganglion. So hopefully that highlights the clinical relevance.